I'm at Sonic, filming this one at Sonic. I got a ocean water with nerds. Badass moment. It's pretty good. Also, don't mind my appearance. I spent the night at a friend's house. I'm rough, disheveled. But I wanted to make a video. That's not the topic of the video. I wanted to make a video about parenting. All right. So you've all seen it. You've been in a restaurant and you've seen the kid with the iPad, with the big iPad with the arms and legs on the table, seeing it just like touching the screen after eating. And it's disgusting. It's gross. And I'm sure if you've been on this earth long enough, you've seen what happens when a parent tries to take the iPad away. The kid goes ballistic. It's insane. It's like you just sealed off their lungs. You might as well have condemned them to death, taking away the iPad. We live in a generation of iPad kids, of like parents aren't able. I don't know if it's I don't really know what the problem is. My thought is it's the parents, is that the parents just suck. This bitch did not have to pull up next to me. That the parents suck and are not good parents or lazy parents. That for them it's easier to just slap a screen in front of their kid than it is to actually like genuinely teach them how to entertain themselves or just be able to just sit. They don't want to deal with the screaming and crying, and it's easier for them to just take a short-term solution and just stick a screen in front of their face, and they're just brain dead staring at it. So, and as we can see, when they take away the screen, this isn't a good practice, because the kids, it's just not good. They go crazy. And it cooks their attention span. Creates this expectation that they always have a thing to watch, something to keep them busy, when it's not always the case. Sometimes you gotta fill time yourself. But with the iPads, you're just teaching them not to do that. And so I've got to thinking, because I would like to be a parent someday. And I'm trying to think, I'm looking at the failures of those below me. Or below me? No, like before me. Looking at the failure of those before me, seeing where they're failing in parenting so that I don't make the same mistakes. I'm trying to think in a more and more chronically online state of being, how do we avoid raising iPad kids? Because personally, when I was raised was when technology like iPads, streaming services, it didn't exist early on in my childhood. It didn't really come to fruition or like get popular until I was like 3rd grade, stuff like that. But I'm trying to think how to avoid this from happening, because when my parents didn't give it to me just because they didn't have it. It didn't exist. But then when it did exist and I wanted it, I remember complaining a lot and them just being like, no, tough luck. So it's gonna be rough at the beginning because the kid doesn't know what's good for them. I didn't know what was good for me, and I'm very happy with the way my parents raised me, not giving me like unlimited internet access and every piece of technology I could have wanted. Like, I'm happy they raised me that way. I feel like I've been raised in a way that I can keep myself busy, and I don't have to always have like a form of stimulus to keep my brain running. But with the kid, the problem with when I have a kid is that we're moving as a species at an exponential rate when it comes to technology. We went from, when I was born, flip phones, like 2005, the iPhone didn't even exist, to now 2023, everything's automated. We've got AI shit, self-driving cars, every streaming service you can imagine. Like technology that just does everything for you. It takes away all need for human cognition. And it's nice. Like, it's nice in a sense, but having that as the new normal is just kind of weird. Like, it almost takes a bit of a, like, meaning away from life, sort of. I mean, like, if you're not doing anything yourself, like, part of what makes having free time, so to speak, or just being able to do what you want rewarding, is that you worked so that you can get to that point, you know? You're like, I got my stuff done, now I can do this. But in the age where everything's being done for us, there's nothing to get done. So all of a sudden, the cherished free time just seems arbitrary, and it's not as special. So I bet you're thinking, what does this have to do with kids, giving kids iPads? And at the moment, I don't know. I'm currently trying to tie that together in my mind because I went off on a train of thought, but there's a correlation here. Give me a second to think about it. I don't want to raise my kids to be slaves to the screen, to be extra dependent on all the amenities technology offers. I want my kid to be able to, like, think for themselves and, like, be able to do things on their own. Because, like, it's really nice to have these tools, but I also don't want my kid to be, like, an educational vegetable and, like, just bank on everything. Like, do the AI essay writing thing anytime an essay prompt is due. Like, I don't want that to happen. I want my kid to, like, have some sort of brain power, you know, and not just be like a screen zombie. But with that, I'm trying to decide. Also, I went into this video with no plan, so if this is all over the place, my sincerest apologies, but I don't care. This is my channel. Give me a second. I'm gonna get there. My brain's just moving slow. So I know what I want to do, or I think I know what I want to do, and I think I know what's best, but I also don't know how to go about that. I think it's best to limit technology early on and ease into it, you know? You don't need to be giving your kids phones and iPads from the get-go, just because that's not a good practice. It builds a false expectation. But the problem with doing that was easy to do when I was growing up, and that's still easier to do now. But in 10 years, it's going to be a lot harder, because we're going to be a lot more, even more technologically centered than we are now. It's going to get a lot more very quickly. And I just don't know. Like, is that the best course of action to limit it? Because also, if I do limit in this current day and age, if I do limit my kids' screen access and technological access, then it's gonna cast them out. Like, they're not gonna be able to relate to their friends, because everyone's online. Everyone's got everything. They're not gonna be able to relate. And would I rather my kid not grow up dependent on screens and turn out like me, or would I rather them, like, Would I rather them be able to like make social connections and be good friends? But then comes the argument that like these iPad kids are so in their own world with their iPad. This iPad is the only thing they care about. It's all the dopamine they need. They don't feel compelled to like branch out and make the social connections with people because they know they're just content with their iPad. So it's a very slippery slope. I just don't know I don't know what the play is, like what's the move? Because you give them the iPad so that they can relate to their people, their friends, and their surroundings. But then if you do that, there's also the chance that they just choose not to be social and choose to just be online the whole time. And yeah, I know that like online friends and stuff, like I have some online friends, I get it. But it's important to connect with real people. That's what life is about. Like you have to be able to connect with people. And I want to give my kid the tools to relate to people, but I don't want him to use that tool to also just completely isolate himself. It's just tough. I don't know what to do. And I don't have to make a decision now. I'm not having kids now. God forbid I'm not having kids now. It'd be horrible. I've got years to wait before I have a kid. And maybe things will change by then. Maybe like just the way of life changed, the way we view technology, how we do things. Like maybe that changes over time. And we just like maybe my perspective shifts to more pro technology, positive. Because I'm not hating on technology. I love technology. I use my phone a lot. I play games. I watch TV. And I enjoy it. I think it's fun. And I think in a day and age like today when everyone's doing it, I mean, how can you not? It's like tragedy of the commons. If everyone's online and you're not, then you're the biggest loser. It's only fun if everyone else gives it up. But I'm not advocating for abstinence from all technology. I'm just saying that I think raising your kids dependent on technology isn't good. But I also remember something my parents tried that it just really pissed me off as a kid and didn't work was limited screen time. I hate that. I hate the idea of like screen time where you get this many hours of the day. You have to do it in this time period. Like you can play games from then to then, but after that it's done. You're done for the day. I hate that because then it creates a sense of urgency when that time rolls around. You've got to drop everything you're doing. It's almost like making a schedule. You're like, oh, I can't hang out with them because this is my only video game time, and I want to get my video game time in. If you make it so that it's like limited, it places more emphasis on it. But if you give it arbitrarily, then all of a sudden you're not as pressured to just spend as much time on it while you can. And that's what I tried to tell my parents when they did that. When they did like limited amount of video games time. And I told them, I was like, yo, placing this limit makes me feel pressured to like get all my time's worth during the limit. If we just could do it whenever, I'm not going to feel like, oh, I have to get it in now. I'm just going to be like, I can play it later. Let me do this. I can do that. I can do that whenever. So I'll definitely be taking that mindset into parenthood. But I think the best way to go about that to avoid this frustration with your child is just not introducing something you might regret. Like a video game console. I think video games are good. I think it's a nice outlet of escape, and it's fun, nice outlet of escape, a little breather, But I also think kids shouldn't have free range on it, I'm gonna raise my kid to like respect me, to when I say, hey, it's time to get off the game, they're like, okay, and they get off the video games. I think that's what's most important. I think that's what is going to solve all of the underlying issues when it comes to not just parenting your kids when it comes to technology, but just parenting as a whole, is you have to build a mutual respect with your kid. Like, you can't drill into their head all the time that, like, I mean, you need to be like, I'm older than you, you have to respect me. But that's good. They need to learn to respect you because you are their parent, but you have to give that mutual respect and understanding back. You have to think back to when you were a kid and think about how you would take this. Have some hindsight. Parent them like you would have wanted to be parented. I think that solves issues across all boards of parenting. It's much easier said than done. It's going to take work on parents' ends, but it'll be worth it in the long run, because you'll have a good relationship with your kid, and you guys can communicate things, boundaries y'all like, boundaries y'all don't like, and you can come to agreements rather than it being like a super dictatorship. And at the end of the day, the parent does have all power, right? And they should. But if you want your kid to love you, if you want your kid to like you, you've got to, like, even if it's fake, got to make them think they at least have some say in their own parenting, you know? Because if you take what your kid says into account, like they suggest something to you, and then you genuinely take into account and make a change because of that, your kid's gonna think like, oh, they're actually listening to me. I'm not just talking to a wall. They're actually hearing what I'm saying and respecting it, and like trying to come to a compromise. And I mean, most kids probably aren't that mature and don't understand that, but they will one day. I got so far off track of what I initially intended to talk about, but that's what these videos are for. Getting your thoughts out on paper, and yeah, that's what they're for. You've got to talk it out so that you know what you really think, what you believe. That's why we do this. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna enjoy my drink now.